Hello. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm actually in an office today,
Oh, that's good.
so
Is it the Hepsium office?
yeah, I'll give you a quick tour. As
Yeah,
long as we're so you can see. Let's see. There's a view. And there's like a guy down there who's like cleaning the windows. I don't know if you can see that, but so yeah, and then like you have like
cool.
uh,
Is it someone's birthday?
you can see no. So this is Alex. He has a birthday sign that says algebraic data types because
Oh, I
he's
like that.
So we can see the containers from here.
Oh, very good.
So it's really important that you get a good view of the containers from your office. There's Mount Rainier.
Nice.
And the
Oh,
Smith
you're really up
Tower.
high. I like that.
Yeah, we're on the 33rd floor. See that pointed building there? That's Bob Wise's office over there. He has one office over there.
Oh, nice.
This is the black one there is the Columbia Tower, which is the tallest building west of the Mississippi and north of San Francisco. So there you go.
Very cool. So, I'm just going to pull up the agenda. Okay, so not much on the agenda so far, apart from Pipe Jacob. Jacob Beecham. Hello.
Hey.
You want to go first?
Yeah, so I have this all we've got? How many people? Okay, so I've got a draft out for the postmortem of 160's release for kubeadmin. I only added this to the agenda like yesterday, so I doubt anyone's had time to read it. So just a broadcast. I'm looking for more feedback. I got feedback on the initial notes and timeline that I had. Thanks to people who provided feedback there. And so now it's, I wouldn't say it's close to a final draft, but there's still some sections that need to be fleshed out a little bit more. But I think it's to the point where I'd like more eyes on it, get more feedback on it. Although Robert did a drive-by last night and gave me tons of feedback, and I'm already trying to account for it now. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. I will take a look at it later on, although I was kind of on holiday at the time, so I don't know if there's much I can add. On vacation, sorry, I should speak American in this meeting.
Well, some of it is, some people can bring the aspect of making sure that it's accurate, but also even if you weren't involved, looking at the timeline and the what went wrong, then reasoning about what are reasonable action items is also really important, especially since we're going to need SIG owners for them. We're actually going to try to follow through on them. So even if you didn't have a hand in it, even if you weren't a part of it, you could still give reasonable feedback on it.
Great. I'll take a look later. Thank you. Cool. So I just added an item just in time to the agenda as well, which is just an FYI that I've spent a couple of hours working on a kubeadmin upgrades and HA design proposal, which is now in document form. I really just took the notes that we took in the face-to-face meeting in Berlin and started turning them into something that's a bit more consumable by people who weren't in the meeting. I've also drafted a very rough sketch of what a UI might look like, or a UX for the CLI, at least. And I literally just made this up. So please take a look and give early feedback on the draft. It really isn't finished yet. There's the document sort of trails off into bullet points that I literally copied and pasted from the meeting notes, but I plan to work on fleshing those out in a little bit more detail, and maybe trying to come down on specific sides of an argument, and reasoning out the justifications for those and so on.
So I just wanted to mention that I've been brainstorming some ideas about high availability in the kubeadmin world. with a bunch of changes that we have been percolating across the community and try to get them distilled into what we would want to do going forwards. Is it possible for us to kind of separate out high availability into a separate spec that we could happy to work on it together? It just seems like those are two very large pieces that should probably be disentangled.
Absolutely. So the goal with the HA design section of this document was just to convince ourselves that there was a path forwards with the design that we have planned for self-hosting and upgrades. It wasn't to design the ultimate HA implementation for kubeadmin, and it's a specific non-goal to actually deliver that in 1.7. But yeah, we just wanted to sort of reason through that there was at least one possible way of doing things, given the assumptions that we're making about how we will do upgrades and self-hosting, if that makes sense. But we should totally collaborate on that.
Okay, I will try to get some draft document out before our next meeting. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Yeah, cool.
Okay. So do we want to go through the 1.7 planning stuff? So prior to this meeting, there was a SIG PM meeting. I wasn't able to attend, but there's it looks like things are getting more formal in terms of proposing features and actually having those things locked down, on a timeline, and then have that stuff be reported up through SIGs. So just to sort of, make sure that we get, eyes on stuff that's going to impact lots of folks, so that it doesn't land like, at code freeze, as tends to happen with these things. So I think it may make sense for us to sort of call our shots in terms of the stuff that we want to try and get done for 1.7. We can pick that document and then just make sure that anything that anybody wants to get done, we get the right stuff into the feature repo in time to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. I just added to the top of this proposal a link to, well, I already had a link that said code must be in by June 1st. And I had another link that says features must be in the features repo by April 26th. So we did go through the 1.7 planning doc in a fairly recent meeting. I'm trying to remember when it was. It might have been 2 weeks ago. But I would be happy to go through it again in this meeting.
I think just in general, we're just going to have to, pick the stuff that is in and out. And in means that somebody's gonna sign up to drive it. Otherwise, it ends up being out.
Well, I'll sign up to drive the upgrade feature.
That is awesome.
And that is, has everyone got the SIG-cluster-lifecycle 1.7 planning document up? I can put a link to it in the notes.
We have a lot of links in the notes. Okay, so I've got 3 of them in there.
So I think this was Robert's doc originally. Not that docs have to have owners. Yeah, this is the one we went through together a little while ago. Yeah, so I'm the fourth one on the list, upgrades and downgrades in kubeadmin. I'll pick that up. I'll link to
So from the Heptio side, I mean, we got together and talked about it. I'm not sure we can sign up for anything major this cycle. The one thing I do want to do myself is get some of the release stuff into shape so that we can build our own releases, so that we can test this stuff out truly end to end before release time. So that's going to help the effort out, and Tim can sign up to at least I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but drive towards a design doc for HA.
That's great. Awesome. It may make sense if we have a design doc for HA coming down the pipe that the goal for the HA design section of the upgrade proposal just links to that proposal rather than trying to replicate it in line.
Yeah, well, and I think there might be something like a doc in terms of the like architecture of how HA works, and then what is the UX that we want to really present to users, and we may find that there's other stuff we need to do to be able to make the UX really work. Yep. I am worried about things like certificates and stuff. And, you know, are we going to stick those in etcd? That seems like a bad idea. Especially the certificates that you use to talk to etcd, you're not going to put those in etcd. So that's something that we're going to have to figure out. And that's mainly a UX thing, I think. I mean, like in the design, we can say, hey, you must have certificates on each machine, right? Okay. Like that's a good technology, you know, sort of forward thing. But from a UX point of view, that ends up being a pain.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Cool. Well, hopefully that'll come out in the design.
Sounds good.
So,
right,
do you want to take us through those, through the 1.7 planning doc then, Joe? We can just take each component and say, and try and in or out it.
Well, I think, you know, it's just a matter of you know, if there's not a name on it, then it's out. It's kind of how things work. Let's see, the first thing on the list is component config, and Mike has his name next to that. Mike, are you, you know, obviously this is going to be a group effort, but are you up for driving this?
Yeah.
Sweet. Production ready cube admin. I'm not sure that this is a feature in terms of sort of a long-term goal. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes, I think it consists of lots of stories. It's more like, it's kind of like a theme, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. So the phases stuff, man, I wish I could sign up to drive that, but I don't want to overcommit myself. And Lucas is going back to school, right?
Yeah, Lucas has a busier term coming up, I think.
Okay, so we're actively.
I'm not sure if we're going to get none of his time.
Okay, well we can talk to him offline and see if maybe he wants to sign up for some of it. The upgrades and downgrades, that's going to be you, Luke. So I'll move that up. Let's see, make master images pulled from GCR instead of side loaded. So there's a couple of things here that sort of got under this bucket. So Justin, are you on board here?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're called Kubernetes SIG AWS today.
I logged out and then logged back in. I don't understand you.
I know. I've done the same thing.
Let's table that.
All right. So, do you want to try and distill this down to a feature proposal and sign up for it, whatever it ends up meaning?
Well, for us, we're going in the other direction, right? We're trying to make it not come from.
Okay. So, I see what. Okay, I didn't read close enough. I just saw your name there first.
Sorry. Yeah. No, someone put a headline in. I don't know who put the headline in.
Okay.
So it's more like a discussion than a feature.
Okay. Okay. So I think one thing that might be interesting here is to really get crisp about what the stories are in terms of how images get to machines and make sure that we have a good way of testing that. So I feel like we're not quite to the level where we have a feature here, but we have to do some design work for figuring out what the features might be to get crisp here. Is that kind of where we're at?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I'd love to see a method of pulling that doesn't rely on a registry, because it feels like, yeah, anyway, but yes, something around this would help a lot of people. Even giving a list of the images we use would help a lot of people.
Okay.
I did notice that we ended up with a list of images in the kubeadmin guide.
I hate that, though. I got to be honest, because it means that we have to do a docs thing every time, and you have to copy and paste that stuff. I think the tool should be able to report itself what is the manifest of images that it needs. But Again, that's a small thing that I might be able to actually sort of sneak in. I don't think that's sort of full feature level type thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just
so
like
there's
it for a different reason, but never mind. I think it should be on the advanced kubeadmin page, not the like, here's how to get started with Kubernetes page, but it doesn't matter.
Well, let's reorganize that stuff. But okay, so cleaning up the release process might be part of this also, because now other people can create images and we can figure out how we push those around and get them. Okay. So better add-on management. So Justin, your name's on this one too.
I'm actively working on this stuff. I've done some stuff in COPS to basically we had to solve the problem of like how do we deal with the fact that 1.5 and 1.6 add-ons are completely incompatible with each other in practice. And I put a doc, and I'll put a link to it in the SIG-cluster-lifecycle Slack. But yes, where I'm sort of coming down to is that we should probably like think about relatively static manifests, so not templating, nothing like that. And it feels like everyone is moving towards having smarter self-managing components that have more of their configuration in config map rather than templates. And I'm trying to figure out like where that breaks down and what doesn't work, and that's sort of what I'm working on.
Okay, I saw on some issue that, or maybe I forget where I saw it, some really interesting ideas about sort of, version dependency management, strings and predicates and all that. Are you going to put that together into something that looks more like a design doc that like more folks can get their eyes on?
If you're referring to the one I did, yes. COPS now has a add-ons thing which has a ability to select a Kubernetes version, and then the challenge is how do you do upgrades and downgrades? And that's the doc I'm going to paste into the channel.
Okay, so there is a doc on that. Okay, cool. All right, so we have the HA clusters in kubeadmin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clarify, I'm going to move this up, and I'm going to clarify that we're going to do, and I'm going to put here design in 1.7, and then say is going to starting stock. Okay. Because we already talked about that.
Well, just one thing on HA is that like while I do think it's sensible to have it as a non-goal for 1.7, if it turns out that the self-hosting stuff lends itself to this being easy and it's possible, then and you can have some instructions for how to do it, then like happy days.
My guess though is that there's going to be a lot of nitty-gritty sort of like UX things that we're going to want to work through there to really make that scenario where we want it to be. So maybe we'll be able to have some sort of like roll up your sleeves alpha type support in 1.7 if things come together great, but we're not going to get it. My gut is we're not going to get it where we want it to be.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Design doc sounds like a sensible goal.
The cluster config, similar to component config. Let's see. My gut here, is this like feature flags and stuff like that? Is that kind of what this is? I'm chasing that link. Use config map for cluster config. Okay, so maybe this is like, what are the network ranges that everything's using so that everything can sort of key off of that versus not? Is that kind of what we're talking about here? Is this feature flagging? I don't know.
I think there are configs that span multiple components. You can group it in with some of the other component config stuff, and I will get to it if I can, if nobody else wants to dig into that.
I will move this. Oh yeah, go ahead, Joe. I was just going to say, let's move this to a sub-bullet of component config, which seems to be exactly what you're doing.
For what it's worth, we're probably going to have to coordinate across like some of these different SIGs because they each have their own proposals kind of ongoing with how they are going to do their initialization via config map. And
right. I think there was an email thread going around with other SIG leads, and they had agreed previously to discuss it in SIG cluster lifecycle. So I think it is up to whoever. I don't think we're planning on implementing any of these in other components. I think the plan is to write a guideline on how to implement and hopefully get it ratified by other SIGs and have other SIGs implement that, so we have a consistent view of how config is managed across Kubernetes components.
Yeah, I know the people that are furthest along is the node group. They have probably the best proposal so far.
Right.
I haven't looked at that lately. Did they have something where you don't have to create a config map per node and they can actually have a config map?
It's not per node. In general, it's like a templated
Okay,
stand.
good.
Right?
For a while, it was per node, and I'm like, that ain't gonna work. Cool. Okay, so this is a herding the cats type of thing. So the next item is extract cloud provider code. Is this a cluster lifecycle thing, or like where does this land? Is this,
I was just in the PM group, and apparently SIG-cluster lifecycle does own it.
Okay.
It landed in our bucket.
Okay, so, and this
You don't have to accept it, though.
I mean, it's just a matter of making sure that if somebody's doing work, we don't want them to not have a home and feel like they're not getting the support they need to get good work done, right? So I think, it's reasonable for it to show up here. I mean, as much as anything else, I don't know.
We could have a SIG cloud. There's definitely been like some things that have been cross cloud. I don't know if like another SIG is the answer, but if we're not happy with it, yeah, I know. But like, if we're not happy with it here, we could. There is a need for some form of group that discusses cross cloud issues.
And I think WLAN 0, who is that? I mean, I don't recognize the username. I apologize.
He's at Rancher. He's been working on this for a while.
Okay. Can somebody from this SIG reach out to him and say, hey, where do you want this stuff to land? Because is he aware that he's kind of a football that's being passed around?
Well, the other problem is that like Thucken was or is sort of mentoring and leading this effort. And Thucken does not hang out here, or Tim does not hang out here.
All right, I'm gonna tag them here and we'll see. Okay, WLAN 0 at? I have no idea who that.
He's at Rancher.
Yeah, I need to find an email address.
We could just tag them in this doc. Is that what you're doing, Joe?
Yeah, but you need an email to tag them.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is Siddhartha Mani, who I think this is him. Yes. Do a little.
So while Joe scours the internet for an email address, I will move on to the next item. Remove docs for unsupported distros. Yes, we keep talking about this. Is anyone going to own it? Does anyone want to own this?
I am very happy to send in more PRs to delete stuff, but it makes me very unpopular.
I'll back you up, dude. I think we gotta, here's what we do. Like, we create an icebox, right? And we move stuff there, and we put a warning at the top saying this is an unmaintained part of the docs, sites.
We could actually just move everyone, like, including kubeadmin, including cops, including kubeup, into legacy, and then like everyone has to save themselves. And if you don't save yourself, then you're,
That'll make you unpopular. But yeah, I mean, we got to have a way to essentially put stuff on probation to see if anybody cares. Because like otherwise, we need a mark and sweep GC, something like that.
Yeah,
I delete ones when they bug me. Like when someone says like this is broken, then I go and like look if it's maintained and then send delete. But I guess I could start proactively killing them. I guess if anyone else sees ones that they know to be broken and no one is maintaining, then they should also send deletes.
Yeah, so can I suggest that the target of this exercise to begin with is the choosing a solution page on the Kubernetes docs. Because I don't know, like in this group, we probably don't look at that page very often, but like if you're a new user, then it's like, it's called picking the right solution. Picking the right solution is where you end up if you look for how to install Kubernetes.
Solution? That's...
Yeah, I mean, I just shared the link in the chat. Picking the right solution. I mean, that it's under like installing/setting up Kubernetes on the docs home. I think that actually just looking at this page, looking at the docs home page, it seems like people like, well, there's a selection of projects here that have at least wanted to be visible enough that they have put themselves on this list. So there's Minikube, COPS, KubeADM, and Cargo. And then picking the right solution is like a graveyard for everything else.
We could rename picking the right solution to here is a universe, the Kubernetes universe.
Yeah, we can rename that page like legacy installation tools, although then like
I think GK might object to being called legacy, but you know.
So JJ pulled up that spreadsheet of like all the different distros, like, and there's like 60 on it now. Maybe that's the way to go.
I mean, I don't know if you're joking, but like the idea is that we would have one page which is like, here is the universe of everyone, no bar to getting onto it. And then here is the ones which are like more maintained, I don't know, more whatever it is. I would love it to be that they pass conformance tests because that feels objective and fair. But
yeah, I think
the criteria we were going to use was like has upgrades, I think.
Well,
which means that
as long as
admin failed that test until 1.7.
okay, here's what I'm going to say is that, as I think the first step here is let's discuss what we think the criteria are in terms of, like, I would view this SIG as owning that part of the docs. Okay, let's just put that out there. Let's, like, we own, like, as users come on board, how do we steer them in terms of how do they create and manage a cluster, right? And I think the first thing is for us feeling like we actually have the authority to go in and curate this experience. Now, I think amongst us, it's up to us to figure out what our criteria for that is, and I think maybe it's we take that a little bit offline and sort of entertain proposals in terms of what do we think the best thing to do for users is. Like, I think just out the gate, I think that you know, having a couple of solutions for super easy to get up and running, but not necessarily production ready. And I would say Minikube and KubeAdmin right now are sort of in that layer. I think pointing at the you know, cloud providers like GKE and Azure makes a ton of sense because that's super easy to get people up and running also. And then essentially, you know, systems that have wide support. And then have a list of, like, but, you know, Kubernetes is super flexible. Here's a laundry list. And I'm sure whatever we do, we're going to piss people off. And so I think a good way to start here is to have some sort of rules in terms of you know, how we make this decision.
I agree that like converging on what the criteria are is sensible. So I've written down in the 1.7 planning what are the criteria for being included in this recommendation. So far, I've heard upgrades being supported and passing conformance tests. And passing conformance tests presumably means running conformance tests.
Yeah, it doesn't mean to run them in an automated fashion, I think, but it does mean you have to run them once. Yeah. I don't think upgrades should necessarily be a blocker. I think a lot of people have other ways of doing upgrades. I think it also can be scenario based, right? I mean, like, the great thing about KubeAdmin is that you can pretty much grab any set of Linux machines and make it work, right? And that's actually a huge advantage.
Even if it's not going to be, we don't have this full support that we want there. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't think we necessarily need the same criteria for each section for this stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so Joe, do you want to start a doc that like?
Did I sign myself up for that? Okay. Yeah, that's a hot potato, but I'll start a doc there. I'll work with Justin on this because I think he's passionate also.
I was going to say, or Justin can start the doc. I don't mind.
I clicked on the setup tab and like there's a lot of pages in there, and there's like a tree that goes like 4 levels deep, including like supported Kubernetes level 0.18. I'm like, oh, okay.
Awesome. So who's
all right? So put me and Justin down in between us. We'll figure something out.
Okay, but I'd like to know who's actually going to create the Google Doc.
What is the Google Doc going to say? Like, what are the criteria for being an endorsed?
Yes.
I think it's what is our sort of ethos or theory for how we actually want to manage that experience.
I think you and I, Joe, can do that fairly quickly because I suspect we're not a million miles apart.
We're never miles apart. We just both like to argue.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Put me down for it. It's a short week for me. That's why I have a hard time signing up for it. So I may not get it done before next week, but at least put me down. And this is me paying my penance by actually helping to make the docs better because I bitched loudly, and so cool. now I gotta actually follow through.
Great, I've assigned it to you, Joe.
Awesome.
And then the last one is actually, before we move on to this one, I was reminded by the extract cloud provider code of a question I have, a question I saw a user asking earlier today, which was, how do I get this kubeadm stuff to work with a cloud provider? They took away the cloud provider flag. What do I do? Like, do we want to do some work on making cloud provider support in kubeadmin better? Or do we want to say it's not the job of kubeadmin to integrate with a cloud provider and you should use one of the other projects like COPS, etc.?
Well, COPS is kubeadm. kubeadm is COPS. They are one and the same. They have merged. COPS uses kubeadm for driving important and critical functionality.
Exactly.
So Luke, if we look at one of the core things that kubeadmin enables, it's this bootstrapping with the token, right? And making it so that you can actually stitch things together and establish trust. When running on some cloud providers, you have extra data that you can bring in to establish that trust. And I think we want to build a path to being able to sort of bind in that extra data as we establish this trust. And so with that in mind, I don't think it's crazy to say that there's going to be some clouds provider specific stuff that's running at some point. I think even if it's not about setting the cloud provider flags, but there's also some other level of stuff. And I could see us having something like, oh, you're running on you specify the AWS. Well, let us do a quick probe to see if you have, sufficient IAM roles set up so that things will work. So you're not going to have a bad time in the future, right? Like we can build that into the prereqs. I think the question here is how do we do that in a way that is, doesn't turn into a big kitchen sink like the cloud provider is right now in Kubernetes, right? Because I don't think we want to get ourselves into that bucket. So I think we can do cloud provider integrated things without doing provisioning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wasn't interested in provisioning per se, but I was really interested in things like load balancers and persistent volumes. Do we want to have a best story for kubeadm created clusters being able to do those things? Because at the moment it's completely opaque.
I mean, like at the very least, we can take, like I did this for the AWS stuff, help, work with the cloud provider stuff to actually document what are the requirements for using this cloud provider, how do you set it up, that type of thing. Even if we don't actually have code, having some good docs about how you actually go through and do this is not crazy.
Yeah, I actually think that's a great answer. I think that documentation for, let's say, AWS, GCE, and Azure would be like pretty damn good.
Yeah, I'm like maybe, I don't know, 60 to 70% there for the AWS stuff.
Cool.
And I've been looking for a home for that. So
awesome. That would be very welcome.
You mentioned EVS volumes and load balancers. Is that, I know EVS volumes, like Cups has like a component that's sort of similar to kubeadm that manages like the volumes directly for the purpose of etcd. Is that what you're talking about, or? No,
this is, you know, what do you need to do to set up the environment such that you can pass the cloud provider flag to the you know, the kubelet and the KCM and have it work? How do you configure it, right? Like, I'll give you an example, Justin. Is like, you know, there's a list of like, you know, 6 or 12 annotations that you can add to load balancers that like tweak, you know, how those things, right? Those are essentially undocumented, or at least they're not documented outside of COPS, right? And so
they're not
documented. Take all the work that's been done to make that cloud provider great and actually make it be, you know, more accessible to more people.
Yeah, they're not documented in COPS. They're Kubernetes level annotations.
Right, and so like, but you know, right. People ask about it. You point them at the code, right? I mean, it's like.
I mean, yes, yeah, I do. We'll have that discussion later.
But anyways, okay. So I think the task there is really, we start off with documenting how to use cloud providers, and create the right docker for that.
I think that is a great thing because it's one of the pain points I now see users bumping up against fairly regularly on Slack.
Okay.
So yeah, so Joe, just to confirm, did you say that you will contribute the AWS docs?
Yeah, I'll sign up to do that sometime in the 1.7 cycle.
Great, awesome, yay, thank you. And then I guess we'd be looking for owners for any other. Anyone from Google want to volunteer to write some docs for configuring kubeadmin with Google Cloud?
I mean, I could take that, yeah. Or one of us could take that.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Anyone here from Azure? Or any other cloud provider?
Anyone here from Deis? We can now poke them.
True. Transitively. Okay, that's fine. I just thought we might find some lurkers who could get to do some work. That would be fun.
I haven't quite. Oh, I just realized. Okay, you can see the light bulb go off right above my head. Chris, who's been like working so hard on the AWS stuff, now works for Microsoft. I'm sure this has occurred to everybody else, but that's hilarious. Okay. I'm sure we can find somebody from. Like, let's get some of that stuff in, and then we'll lob a grenade at Brendan and see what he does.
Okay, so the last one on the list then is invest in velocity and safety or pay down kubeadmin tech debt. Jacob, you are on the hook apparently for getting kubeadm into its own repository. How do you feel about that?
I don't know who tagged my name on that, but what I had done is started documenting all of the nitty-gritty details that I think we kind of I don't think anyone really dug into the ramifications that happen when you move into your own repository. So like, how do we handle just getting the release notes working? What bots do we need to enable? What do we do with the snake queue? All of that stuff. So I started looking into it. And then I think the last SIG meeting, a few people kind of said, kubectl has a superset of the problems that we do, and they're already trying to move. So we should really put the brakes on this and figure out what they can do. I still want to figure out how we'll be affected, and we might have problems that aren't solved by kubectl, or at least earmark these are the things we expect kubectl to solve, and maybe help drive some of those things. But it's definitely a non-goal to actually execute the move in the 1.7 timeframe.
Sounds good.
Or even before kubectl. The second one, I think Derek McKay, I think he's on the line, has been driving this, so I don't know if he's going to continue to drive this. But I also expect us to have more items here that are action items from the postmortem that we just kind of have to have consensus on. Better safety mechanisms going forward, making sure it's much easier to do end-to-end testing and it's actually enforced, and we have a release process so we don't just kind of let a release happen. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Derek.
No, you're totally fine. And I would totally sign up to push that forward. So.
Great. Thanks for the clarification on that. Okay, so there are some other items here. Continue improving unit and integration test coverage, and make end-to-end testing of a developer build trivial. Has anyone signed up for either of those items in particular?
So I've been continually working on the unit and integration tests. I kind of have been swamped the last couple weeks with some changes, but with end-to-end testing, I know I actually haven't even hooked up with Jacob to see what happened with his end-to-end tests. I've been kind of out of it. But to move forward and start doing kubeadmin specific end-to-end tests. So that's something that I'm working on. I have lots of PRs open and merged for just adding unit tests and whatnot, and integration tests. So that's continuing, and I'm working on that. And help is always welcome, especially on getting the end-to-end tests. I feel so confused on how to actually get that started and working. So.
Yeah, sure. And I put the idea of trying to make it, completely trivial to run the end-to-end test. I love that. I think it's a very noble goal. I don't know if we'll get there at this release. You can certainly put my name next to it because I've been working on those. I'm still figuring out if I have other obligations within Google. So I don't know if I can sign up for it to be delivered in 1.7, but I'm certainly going to try to get incrementally better with everything related to end-to-end testing.
So I just want to echo, in my mind, and I don't want to be a broken record here, is that to a lot of folks outside of Google, the end-to-end stuff, it just feels so opaque. It's just not really clear where to catch a corner and start getting involved in that.
Also within Google.
And I'm not sure how to solve that, but I think, anything we can do to start, making it easier for more folks to get their sharp corners everywhere. I think it's just going to, it's going to remove some of the load on the people who are sort of handling that now, and it'll make it easier for other folks to get involved. So,
we'd love suggestions.
I'm a broken record there. I want to find a way to help. What do you say, Mike? I'm sorry.
We'd love suggestions on how to improve this. We also have federated testing, so if you guys can get funding to run your own end-to-end testing, I think the project ownership is the really hardest part.
No, that would be great. Yeah.
There's a doc on how to add federated testing, and you can just add to test grid and Governator your own tests by.
Is this new, Mike?
It's not new.
It's not new. Okay, because I've been looking for those type of docs, and I had a hard time finding.
I'll paste it into the chat.
So, just to note in general, SIG testing is a good place to go. Like, they have a Slack channel, and they'll help you out if you have trouble with the end-to-end test, and they'll try to help you out. And you can express ideas there, or ways to improve it, and maybe start something there.
Very cool.
It also feels like there's been some great changes made there recently, so it is easier to run the tests, and it also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, people that know much better, it feels like we're moving towards running things in bare Kubernetes rather than in Jenkins. I've seen PRs that point in that direction.
Yes, we are.
So one thing that I think, I'm just going to throw this out there, this is a little DevX type of thing, but since we're on the topic, if we had some sort of page that collected all the dashboards and then pointed to the code, behind those dashboards and who to talk to if you want to change them, I feel like there's there's half a dozen different things that, that everybody knows to look at, but they're not collected into one place. And anybody else feel that way?
Most of this tooling is in test infra. So very Governator and test grid and everything, Prow is all in test infra. So if you want to get started, you can maybe create an issue in test infra and.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking about is very simply, is there a page someplace that actually has pointers to Prow and Governator and test and the test grid and then actually talks about what the purpose is behind each of these things so that users can find these dashboards?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
There's a woman at Google whose name I think is Elise or Eloise or something that was working on something like that. I don't know.
That would be awesome. Okay, so okay, very cool. Oh, she's at CoreOS then. That's what Caleb is saying.
That's her.
Yes, because as we bring new people into Heptio, it's like, how do you find these things? And it's all word of mouth, right? So I think trying to bring that together would be great. Very cool. Okay, we're a little off topic. I apologize.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think we've made it through this doc, and I think we've done a good job of moving things that we think we can actually do in 1.7 up into 1.7. So just a reminder then, everything that we actually do want to get into 1.7, if you're signed up as an owner for that, please get features into the features repo before April 26th. And we need to get code and tests and docs, presumably, into the repo by June 1st. So that's not long now.
So 4/26 is the deadline. Okay, so I created notes that I assigned to people on each of these things for the ones that I think need feature repro.
Cool.
Just so that we can.
Great stuff.
You already have this stuff going on. Please excuse me being.
That's good. So does anyone else, well, actually, just looking at the stuff for 1.7, does anyone feel like they are working on or want to work on something which is not on this list?
Well, I mentioned on the Slack channel this proposal about local cluster tool based on kubeadm DND cluster. I don't know whether it should go into the features or it maybe a separate tool, maybe reside in kubeadm repository.
So is that specifically, so the Docker in Docker, is that the Mirantis project for kubeadm Docker in Docker?
Yeah, but there was ideas. I discussed it with Lucas and Ilya Dmitrichenko about making a Go version of this tool and including it in kubeadm repository as a a tool for running local clusters and end-to-end tests and so on.
I love that stuff. I think it's really good, and I think that any project to rewrite some useful piece of shell script in Golang is generally a good thing. I would personally welcome that into the kubeadm repo, just as a PR.
Yeah, as of now, there's PR describing the proposal itself. So basically, my question is that I should include this stuff in this planning document, or it's kind of separate from Kubernetes itself.
I mean, go ahead, Luke. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, like, if it doesn't touch sort of the core Kubernetes repo, then we have a lot of freedom to experiment and see what works. And I don't think we have to follow a very formal process around this. I think the more we move this into the Kubernetes repo proper, the more we expect this to line up with the Kubernetes release timeline, the more we expect this to be sort of official and part of the release packages, then the more formal things need to be.
Okay, thanks.
I can just mention, so in COPS and AWS, we're obviously working on IAM. That's not really particularly relevant, I think, to lifecycle, other than that we're working on it. But the other thing which is coming up, but I don't really want to deal with, is like management of etcd, like an etcd system operator, like one that doesn't depend on Kubernetes. We are not supporting etcd3 in COPS because the upgrade is problematic, and we need backups, and we need all those things. So it's certainly something that we basically need the etcd operator to work without requiring Kubernetes. And I don't know if I'm going to have time to work on that, but it does feel like very much a SIG cluster lifecycle. There's something that will overlap with all the stuff that you're doing in SIG cluster lifecycle, or everyone is doing in SIG cluster lifecycle.
Cool. Okay, so that sounds good. Just to go back to Ivan's point, so like my take on that was like Ivan, you were really talking about a sort of a tool that's mostly useful for people developing Kubernetes, as opposed to people who are users of Kubernetes. And for that, I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, continue.
All I was going to say was just that I think it's great. I think it's a really useful thing. I think you should make a PR into the kubeadm repo, like ideally with a Golang version, if you're working on that. And I would be supportive of it. But I don't think it needs a feature in the features repo because it's not really user facing. It could be something that some users might want to use for like local development and if they want to simulate a multi-node cluster. But I would see it as mostly being useful for Kubernetes itself development.
Yeah, it's useful for Kubernetes development. It can also be useful for projects that extend Kubernetes because it runs easily, say, on Travis CI, unlike Minikube. It does not need nested virtualization. It's quite lightweight. And the idea is that I discussed it with Lucas during KubeCon. The idea is that I submitted this proposal and someone please review it because I'd like to see whether what features are really necessary before actually rewriting the thing in Go and making the PR for kubeadm with the code.
Cool. Could you please link to the proposal in the agenda /notes section of this doc? And then we can get some eyeballs on it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do it.
Great. Anything else from anyone? Anything else that people want to talk about on the agenda? Might be able to give you 7 minutes of your day back. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.